Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our careers webinar today. So basically, we're going to be focusing on the area of your career, keeping your career on track, and outlining a range of effective career management strategies. So for background, my name is Karen Lanigan. I'm Head of Member Experience here with Chartered Accountants Ireland, and as part of that, I oversee our career supports and recruitment service that we offer to our members. And I have been working in this space for many years and would have a really good understanding of the various different career trajectories, career pathways that are open to members at various different stages, because obviously as well we're at the forefront of the profession and the market in general, not just in Ireland but globally. We're very well positioned to keep you up to date in relation to market developments, trends and opportunities within the profession. So those insights will be interwoven throughout the webinar today. So effectively, what we're going to do today is help you with that whole career planning, career development process, and to provide you with tools and advice that will help you to kind of maximize your career potential. Because obviously you've put in a lot of hard work to get to the stage of being a qualified chartered accountant and to get you to the stage of your career that you're at now. So what you want to do is to make sure that you're keeping that momentum going, that you're leveraging, I suppose, the skills that you have, the tools that you have at your disposal, and of course the support, but also that you have the knowledge and the expertise to be able to navigate your career as you move things forward. A key element of that is obviously, maintaining your relevance and the skills that are going to enable and facilitate your success. And we take you through what those skills are, both in the Irish market and, as we said, in a global context. And we'll also touch on then the importance of your visibility overall from a personal branding and a network perspective. And I'll also outline to you some of the supports that are available to you as a member of Chartered Accountants Ireland, and how you can get maximum benefit from your membership, and how we as your institute can support you. So basically, the whole area of career management, to my mind, is a skill set in its own right, and it is something, in an area that you need to work on and to develop as you go throughout your career. And I suppose the same fundamental principles apply whether you're working here in Ireland or whether you're in Australia. It's the same fundamental skills and the same fundamentals that apply. Similarly, it's the same fundamentals that apply whether you're kind of early, mid, or latter stage. You still need to be mindful of, planning your career, thinking about it from a strategic perspective and taking control of it, as opposed to, letting it just happen as such. And particularly in a world where I suppose people are increasingly busy, they're probably more, kind of focused on themselves potentially, so if you're not taking control of it, then nobody else necessarily will do that, unless you're in the lucky position where you have a manager or director that does that for you. But ultimately it's your career, it's your responsibility, so it's really about taking ownership of that. So the first thing I would say to you is, to have a plan, and to start thinking about this in kind of steps, and taking that time out to really think about, well, look, what is it that I want to get from my career? Don't just kind of float or drift. To actively and proactively taking that time out to think about, well, look, what is it that I want? What are my motivators? Why am I looking to go down a particular road? And really just even to kind of take that time to map it out. So I say here, write it down, but some people might be more visual. So it could be a case of doing a mind map and planning that out, mapping out the different options, because it really does start to give you clarity. It starts to give you focus. It makes it very real. And like with anything, once you've a plan, you're much more likely to achieve that plan or to hit your goals or to reach where it is that you want to go, because otherwise you're going to end up drifting, as it were. So whereas at least if you take that time out to map it out, a bit like any plan for a business, for those of you in a business context, you'll always have a strategy or a plan for your business. Your career is exactly the same. So what I would suggest is, because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming to kind of think, God, where am I going to be in 5 years' time? It can be very helpful to kind of map it out in terms of short term, so the next 12 months, medium term, then kind of the 1 to 3 years, and then long term, 3 to 5. So that'll help you to kind of, I suppose, chunk it down, as it were, break it up into kind of more manageable segments, maybe starting, whichever works best for you. Some people prefer to think maybe, 12 months time, and work on that. Others prefer to kind of say, well, look, I'd like to be an FC in 5 years time, and then work back from that. It's really whatever works for you, and just think about like a good starting point for you in terms of whether you find it easier to think about the next 12 months or to think of 5 years and ahead, and work back. But it's really all about what kind of works with you once you have a structure and once you have an approach around that. So once you decide on your time frame, then what I'd be suggesting that you do is that you're looking firstly at the goals. So what are your goals? Where do you want to be at the end of that particular period? So I mentioned there, at the end of 5 years, you might decide that actually I want to at that point be in a financial controller position. So there you have it, your overall goal. Then you need to then look and say, well, what are the actions required? What do I need to do to achieve my goal? So in that sense, it could be that you're at a financial accountant level now, and you need to start getting some supervisory or management experience to position you to take on that role of financial controller. So there you go. There's your actions. You need to be then looking for opportunities to develop that people management experience. So that just starts to, I suppose, break it down for you and give you kind of step-by-step approach. Then you need to look at the tools. So what help and support do you need? So are there courses that you might need to do? Are there, others, colleagues around you that you can learn from? Is there a manager, director that can help you in terms of gaining that support, that guidance? Is there a mentor maybe within the organization that can help you, or external? So it's looking to see what help and support you require. And that's really important, because sometimes we can kind of, I suppose, charge down the road of wanting to do all of this ourselves, and not realizing that actually people are there to help. And it's a question of just asking and reaching out for help. And for the most part, people are really happy to help you with that. So don't be afraid to reach out. Lastly, then you need to be looking at the result. And this needs to be something very tangible, something that'll motivate you, that's something that'll drive you towards that particular outcome. So what is that measure of success for you? What does it look like? So for you, it could be, just going back to that example of being in a financial controller position, you might, I suppose, visualize that a little bit more by saying, well, look, in an SME organization, with a team of 5, and, earning a salary of X amount. So it's really trying to kind of put a bit more shape around that, and really kind of visualizing and thinking through what it is exactly you want to have achieved within that time period. So if you put firstly the parameters of time around your plan, so short, medium, or long term, and then also then to look at this particular structure in terms of your goals, your actions required, the tools and support that you can pull on or draw on to assist, and also then to be more specific in terms of the result and the actual outcome for you. So I mentioned then as well, as part of the webinar, what I wanted to focus in on is, your visibility, and proactively and intentionally managing your visibility. Because interestingly, I suppose, and I'll talk you through this in a little bit more detail, your performance within the role is one aspect of your career success, but another element of this is your visibility. So it's really important, that you are visible. that you don't get kind of forgotten about. And I often say to people that your visibility is equally, if not more important than your ability, because you could be beavering away in the background doing a really good job, but if nobody knows about that or nobody notices the great work that you're doing, you can actually be left behind or forgotten. And particularly now in an environment where many of us are still working in a hybrid environment, we're not in the office as much. You don't get that same kind of, I suppose, FaceTime with people. And, you know, maybe for those who are in the office more, you know, they get more FaceTime than those who aren't. And you have what's called this proximity bias. So it's really important that you're getting that visibility and that you're making the most of you know, I suppose that opportunity to be visible so that people know I suppose about your abilities and that you're making yourself known. So even things like if you are working in an environment where, you know, there's a lot of online meetings, which for many of us that is still the case. A simple thing like putting on your camera can be a really, I suppose, impactful, you know, approach. And also then as well, just making sure that you are contributing to meetings, obviously not just for the sake of it, but, you know, being strategic and intentional in terms of your contributions to meetings is a key thing. So what I wanted to introduce you to is what's called the P.I.E career model. So if we look to the left, so we have this is basically, I suppose, a depiction of what contributes towards your success within your career. And I suppose the further along in your career you are, the more relevant this particular model is, because I suppose as you progress, there's a certain assumption that, you know, you can do certain things, shall we say. But essentially this model is suggesting that basically careers, like your career success, 60% of it is founded based on your exposure. So what I mean by exposure is exposure to senior management, your visibility, that people know who you are, they know what you do, the decision makers know who you are. So you're getting that exposure across the organization and people know what it is you do. The other 30% then is your image, your personal brand, and it's basically what people think of you and what they, you know, how they perceive you, or what, like some people would kind of, I suppose it's a bit like that personal brand. It's kind of what people say about you when you're not in the room. And then just 10% is based on performance. So if you think about that, then it's your exposure and your image that are really critical in terms of that career progression. So you could be absolutely performing at the top of your ability and performing really well, but if you don't have that exposure, it is going to impede your career development. So what you need to be thinking about is, yes, obviously maintaining your performance, which I'm sure all of you do anyway, but it's now thinking strategically about how do I get maximum exposure and how do I ensure that I have the right image and there's the right perception and personal brand that will help me to maximize and to develop my career potential, or to make the most of my career potential. So like for I've spoken to quite a number of members around this, and a lot of the time it does blow their mind in terms of, hang on a minute, so it's more about exposure than it is about performance. And according to this model, yes, it is. That yes, obviously you still need to be performing, but ultimately you get to a certain point where your exposure, your visibility, and people knowing what it is you do are really critically important to ensure career success. So I've some tips for you then, just in terms of making the most of your time in the office, because we've all, I suppose, now got into a kind of a routine and a rhythm, shall we say, around hybrid working. And I suppose when you're really busy, sometimes you kind of get into I suppose a routine, and maybe I suppose taking a step back from the day-to-day routine and really looking at your time in the office and how you can be strategic and deliberate about getting the most of the time in the office. And if you think about it, being in the office is the ideal opportunity to kind of develop those relationships and to meet people in person, because I think we'll all agree that it really is no substitute for meeting somebody in person when it comes to building those relationships, initiating relationships and, building those. So it's about having a plan and thinking about, well, look, who are the people that I need to meet with while I'm in the office? So it's setting aside time, whether it's a lunch or a coffee with those people, and being deliberate around that and think about, well, who is it within, kind of my network that I need to meet with? Who is it that I want to now include in my network as I widen that out, both internally within the organization and also externally. So it's really getting that opportunity to meet face to face and think about, who do you need to meet face to face to build those connections and to influence. So it's really just standing back from that. And even if it was a case of, once a week you set aside 15, 20 minutes to have a coffee with somebody whilst you're in the office, over time that builds up. Because I think if we start looking at it, it can seem quite overwhelming in terms of, how do I do it? But break it down, set yourself small goals and targets, and build it up over time. The other point I've mentioned here as well is that obviously when you're in the office, it's making the most of those kind of impromptu moments and what are often called kind of those water cooler moments. So it's really, and I know myself, it's often at those water cooler moments or as you're walking down the corridor that you really kind of learn about what's going on. You kind of get the story behind the story, or really what's going on, or the politics, or the different angles around it. So it is important that you're zoned into that, you're tuned into it, that you I suppose make the most of those opportunities, and that you've given yourself the space to do that, and the time to make the most of those encounters, because I really do feel that you'd be better equipped, both in terms of relationships, but also just the dynamic and I suppose the politics side of it, that sometimes or oftentimes you miss when you're working remotely or through a kind of online meetings. Those nuances can often be missed. So it's just to tune into those, because they can be very important context as you're planning your career, and so that you know what's going on within the organization, and who the real influencers often are within the organization. So the next point I want to make is in relation to articulating your ambitions, and that is, I suppose, the piece, an extension of the point in relation to exposure. So it's really, I suppose, being very open and very clear in relation to what your plan is. So once you have your career plan laid out, or what it is that you want to achieve, there's no point in keeping that to yourself. You need to make sure that the decision makers, so whether that's I suppose your kind of line manager, HR, etc., that they are aware of what it is you're looking to do in terms of your career, and that you articulate those ambitions and your plans, so that they're aware of those, and then they can support you and work with you. So the ideal opportunity is if you meet with your boss on a regular basis, or the annual or mid-year review process. It's to have those conversations, and to I suppose kind of plan those conversations. Don't go in blind, but like to have a plan and an approach that you want to use to get your point across. The other thing then is to look at ways in which you can raise your profile within the organization. So that could be getting involved in new projects that are coming up within the organization. A lot of organizations now have a lot of change happening within those organizations, or systems, or project roles. So it's about maybe putting your hand up for those opportunities, or asking to take on more responsibility. So it's about looking for those opportunities and not being afraid to put yourself out there for those opportunities as they come along. And look, not all career moves are necessarily upwards. They can sometimes be, a sideways role where you get an opportunity to kind of build out on your experience, gain new skills that then give you a stronger platform from which to move forward. So sometimes I think we can fall into that trap of thinking, well, no, I'm not interested in that role because it's not a step up, but sometimes a step to the sideways for a short period, like as an interim move, can put you on a much stronger footing then to make that move forward, and it builds on your skills and your experience. And sometimes you might even discover a new area that you're more interested in, or other opportunities could arise, that brings you in maybe a different pathway altogether than what you had planned in the first instance. So the pathway in terms of moving your career forward doesn't always necessarily need to be up. Don't rule out kind of sideways moves, or if something has put to you that you kind of think, actually, I hadn't thought of that, or that wasn't quite part of the plan, don't automatically say no. Think about it. Think about the pros, the cons, what can it do to help you in terms of your skills and experience? How will it position you at the end of the project or the contract? So it's really important just to take a step back and to think it through. And I suppose by articulating your ambitions across the organization, you are also raising your profile. And that's really important to make sure that as you're having these conversations, that it is part of your overall intentional approach to raise your profile within the organization, and to build out your network internally. Because you could, whilst you're having those conversations to build out your network, it could be also, part of the process to find out, well, look, what opportunities might be coming down the track, what's happening within the organization generally, where might the opportunities be, what's happening within other areas of the business. So this is, by reaching out, this is how you learn about these things, and you'll be in a better position to I suppose kind of position yourself for those opportunities as they come up. So it's really important that you articulate your ambitions. Equally important is to kind of showcase your output. So again, back to what I was saying, and your exposure, making sure that decision makers are aware of the great work that you're doing, and looking for opportunities to kind of spotlight your achievements. Now, some people find this a bit cringy, but believe you me, you do need to get over that, and to when you have those opportunities, whether it's you're having a chat with your boss, or it's a water cooler moment with the CEO. It's a case of, look, I'd like to tell you about a project that I've been working on. When it suits you to have a coffee, so it's not done in a very kind of cocky way. It done in a way to kind of say, look, just wanted to let you know that this is the great work that I'm doing, and just to make sure that you are on people's radar. And again, this is where your performance review or annual review is really important as well, and that you're planning those conversations and making the most of that opportunity. And what I would say here is the key thing is to focus on your outputs, so the KPIs, the actual impact you had within the organization, and to be able to show that in a kind of very measurable, or kind of metrics associated with it, as opposed to maybe the time spent on it. It's more about, well, look, where did you add value within the organization? What impact did you have? What are the metrics and the numbers that would demonstrate that impact? So really important, articulating your ambitions and showcasing your outputs. So linked to this then is developing what is called your elevator pitch and your brand. Now, don't be frightened by when I say elevator pitch, people kind of go, oh my God, what is that? But it is basically just, if you were to meet somebody in the elevator or the lift, and you had to do a quick introduction to yourself, what would you say? So it's really just having that kind of refined, so that if you are going to an event or you meet somebody, that you can explain in a very I suppose clear, comfortable and impactful way what it is that you do. So firstly, what is your personal brand? And it is a term that is kind of bandied about quite a bit. I think I mentioned this earlier, and often your personal brand is referred to as what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's about that kind of impact, or that impression that you make on people, and what it is they associate with you. So it's one of those things that, can be very helpful and very effective if your personal brand is a positive thing. If it's not, it can be very damaging. So it's really very important that you manage it and you take control of it, and that you're influencing what people think about you, what people say about you. So it is really important to have thought that through, so that what people think is what you want them to think. What people are saying is what you want them to say, and it is consistent with the messaging that you're trying to put out there. And you're thinking about this in a strategic kind of way, in terms of how you want people to think about you, particularly if you're thinking about I suppose a career change, or a change of direction. You don't want to be boxed into a particular area. You want to start, kind of changing the messaging around how you're perceived. So again, just going back to what I was saying, maybe about taking a sideways move. If taking a sideways move gives you that opportunity to shift the thinking around your personal brand, or the perceptions around your personal brand, that can be a really good thing. And it gives you an opportunity to showcase a new skill set or a new area that you wouldn't have been associated with before. And it can help to shift that personal branding. So an elevator pitch, as I said, really kind of short introduction to yourself, 30 seconds or probably even less, to be perfectly honest with you, where you can use this particular formula where you say, I do X for Z, so that. So in other words, you could be saying, I work in the area of financial analysis for Microsoft, so that they can. And then you're outlining the benefit or the value add in terms of the role. So look, this isn't an easy thing to do. It does take a bit of time, but at least if you have a structure and a formula, you can kind of work with it, play around with it, and go with something that feels authentic. Don't go with something that's forced, or that isn't a true reflection of kind of what it is you stand for. So I think it's really important that you take a bit of time with this, jot it down, take a bit of time to reflect on it, go back to it. You're going to have to kind of tweak this on a regular basis, obviously, as your role changes, or if you're looking to pivot or change direction slightly, you'll want to change the kind of the messaging in it anyway. And then I would suggest that you kind of practice it, see how it goes, try it at an event if the opportunity comes up, and then you can kind of, the beauty about this is you can tweak it once you have the structure. You can change the content and see what you're comfortable with. But I tend to find, for the most part, once people have a structure, it works well for them, particularly for accountants, where you like kind of structure, you like a kind of a formula or a process. So try it out. It's not for everybody, that said, but look, it's worth giving it a shot, and I suppose working with it. It can also form the basis of your profile for LinkedIn as well, and obviously you can build it out then as well. So in terms of your personal brand, it's also worth thinking about, I suppose, others around you in a work context or a personal context, to think about somebody you admire, somebody you look up to, and thinking about it, what is it you admire or respect about them, and why? Who do you feel is a good role model? Like, if you're lucky enough to have a strong leader within your business or organization, think about what it is that you admire about them. Is it something to do with their values? Is it something to do with their leadership style, their approach, their communications style, or often it's the behaviors that they I suppose represent. And it's looking then to kind of say, right, well, look, how can I emulate that? How can I bring those qualities, those values into my own personal brand as well? And what can you learn from their approach? Like, what did they do to help, kind of their personal brand, or to promote their personal brand? And for most of us, there are a couple of good examples within our own network, internally work or externally. Maybe there might be a mentor that you know, but it is really worth looking at and just standing back. And I'm sure we can all think certainly of people that, you know, we don't want to emulate, but there are definitely those two that where we would say, do you know what? I admire them, I respect them, you know, that's what I would like to kind of work towards. So it's worth just reflecting on that to and to see what you can learn then from their approach and from you know the way they do things, shall we say. So the next thing I'd like to cover is kind of actually building out your network. So you've got to the point where you know you're comfortable with your personal brand, and you know how it is you want to be seen, you know how it is you want to kind of introduce yourself maybe when you're out meeting you know colleagues or you know members of the chartered community. So how do you go about, or like why would you bother even, you know, developing your network? Well, I suppose the key thing here is that investing in your network is one of the best things that you can do. And the earlier you start, the easier it is. The earlier you start, the bigger your network will be. And when you're at an early stage of your career, you can sometimes think, well, look, I can do that down the line. I'm not going to bother with it now. I'm too busy. Actually, now is the time that you need to do it. It's better to have a network there for when you need it rather than building a network when you need it, which is often what happens when, you know, people might lose their jobs or they're made redundant and then they kind of go, oh, I need to find a new role. I need to network. But actually, you need to have the network built up so that when, if in that unfortunate situation does happen, you have the network there to tap into, and you're actually going into it in a different mindset. Because if you're doing it when you're in a role and it's something that you're doing to kind of future proof, then it's more relaxed. You're not under pressure. Whereas if you're in a situation where you need to find a job really quickly, you're on the back foot almost at that stage. You feel like you're going with an ask as opposed to being in a position of strength, and you're in a position to go into the relationship in a different frame of mind. So I would be suggesting that you're kind of deliberate and strategic and start building your network as soon as you can, and you know kind of start small and build it up step by step by step. It doesn't need to be a massive network. In fact, I actually believe in quality over quantity, and that you have a good, solid, strong network around you, and you know a network that you know is has depth, and I suppose authenticity about it, and that like you know they're strong contacts. You know, a smaller number of strong contacts is actually better than a wider network of you know kind of fairly weak contacts. So I think it's really about you know starting small and building it up, a bit like I mentioned earlier about if you're in the office to arrange a coffee with somebody. Do something similar in this space, like you know set yourself a goal or objective to have you know a coffee with somebody, or to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn once a week, or to arrange a coffee or whatever it might be, just to help you to kind of build up that network. And I think the best way to approach networking is not to go into it necessarily looking for something straight away. You're going in there to kind of I suppose build those contacts, but on a reciprocal kind of basis. So there will be opportunities for you know you to give to somebody as well as they can share things with you. So it's not going in there with that kind of, I suppose, take mentality. It's to go in there with that reciprocal, mutual benefit perspective that you can share ideas, you know, share contacts, you know, build, you know, kind of relationships, learn from each other. So it's really about going into this more just to build relationships as opposed to necessarily getting something from it. And people generally feel more comfortable doing it that way. And that's like if you're doing it by choice as opposed to need, you're going into it in a different space. So I think that's definitely worth considering. So the other aspect of it is to think both kind of, I suppose, within your own profession, so within the chartered network, so to use, you know, your membership connections and leveraging those. So whether that's attending events or, you know, participating in a committee or a district society, is one way of doing that. Obviously, as well, LinkedIn is a huge resource in this area that you can leverage as well to kind of reach out to people, raise your own profile. But I'd also suggest that, you're not confining yourself to just within the accountancy profession, that you are looking outside of that as well. And that you're widening outside of your accountancy network, and maybe through work you might have access to the tax profession, or the legal profession, or sales, or whatever it might be. But it's really just to make sure that you're not confining yourself, I suppose, just to the accountancy side of things. Voluntary or charity work can be a great way to broaden out your network, the local chambers, for example, as well. Or I know quite a number of members have really developed out and widened their network by getting involved in, a charity, or sitting on the board of a charity and not-for-profit organisation, or simply even through sports and social connections, even standing on the side of the football pitch with their kids of a weekend, can really help to develop out those connections as well. So don't be confined to just within the profession. Think more widely as well. And something like, sometimes, meeting somebody just casually at a social event, can lead to actually a really useful, mutually beneficial professional I suppose relationship as well. So just to think kind of widely in that sense as well. I've mentioned LinkedIn, and look, it's a great tool. It's a good way for you to kind of reach out and to connect, to kind of manage those connections and keep in touch with people. Also, as well, the other way to kind of raise your profile is maybe to share content online. It doesn't have to be content that you yourself have specifically curated. It could be sharing content that others have shared, that you like, you feel it's relevant, you want to share it with your own network. So feel free to do that as well. And again, it's about kind of starting small, building up your confidence, and kind of building out from there. And it could be something as simple as commenting on something else that somebody has posted, so it's just getting that engagement going online. So it's really kind of building up your confidence in that particular space as well. So the next I suppose piece of advice and suggestion I have for you is to find a mentor. And this is really important. And if you're lucky enough to have a good strong mentor and somebody in your corner, hang on to them, because they're worth their weight in gold, and can be the real enabler of career success, because basically they're there to kind of support you, to guide you through your career. They're giving you, as this image would suggest, that helping hand up, and they're there, I suppose, to kind of support you. So they're motivating you. They're, I suppose, setting kind of expectations, putting a bit of pressure on you as well. So there's that element of accountability there, which we all need. They're also there to kind of support you when the going gets tough and you need somebody just to kind of keep you motivated. They'll give you feedback, which sometimes we do need, good and bad. And sometimes getting some negative feedback, just kind of helps you to kind of realign, and gives you the feedback that you needed to kind of, I suppose, as I said, realign or readjust, or to do things slightly differently. And as I said, they put that pressure and accountability there. But not just that, like, you feel you've somebody in your court. And you'll be motivated by knowing that you've somebody there to support you, and you have that kind of sounding board. And also, as well, typically, and not always, but like, a mentor very often has more experience than you. So I suppose that their hindsight can be their foresight. Now, a mentor doesn't always have to be somebody who's more experienced than you. It could be somebody on a kind of the same level, and be more of a peer mentor, and that's totally fine. But it's really, I suppose, what you want is somebody who kind of motivates you, who pushes you, who guides you, and is there, to give you that helping hand as you go through your career. The Institute, just so you know, we do have a number of supports in this area. We do have our own career mentor program. So if you don't have a mentor of your own and you'd like to be paired with one of our members, let me know, contact me, and we can put you in touch with a mentor. We also have a women's career mentoring circles event here in CA House next the 19th of June, so next Wednesday at 5:30. We also have specific ACA career mentoring circle events, which we're going to be planning for September. So for those at a slightly earlier stage in their career, and we'll also be running online career mentoring circles later on in the year as well for those of our members who aren't in Dublin. So mentoring is a big focus for us because we can see the value of it. So if you don't have a mentor already, I would seriously advise you to either find one yourself within your own network or come to us and we can pair you with somebody that we feel will be a good fit and a good match for you. So I mentioned earlier about staying relevant, and like I suppose to some extent you're going to think, oh, I can't believe she's saying this, but get like actually doing your exams and getting qualified. It's a huge milestone, but that's just the beginning in terms of the learning in the world that we live and work in now. You need to keep learning. You need to keep developing to make sure that your skills are staying up to date. And I know things like AI and robotics, and everybody's kind of getting worried about those. And will robots take my job, or will AI take my job? And I heard it put very well last week that like AI won't put us out of a job, but people who know how to use it will. So it's a really good, I suppose, depiction or explanation of why we need to keep up to date. We need to be able to use new skills and demonstrate those new skills in the workplace so that we're not left behind. So it's all about, developing those kind of skills, being aware of what is happening in the marketplace. What are the skills that you need to get to the next level? So we were saying earlier about moving to a financial controller role. It's looking at what are the skills that I need to help me to get to that level and to that position again. So it's looking at those kind of skill sets very strategically, mapping out your career and seeing what skills you then need to get you to that certain position and to that certain level. So look, some of the skills that we would see that employers are looking for kind of on a national and an international basis. Now, this is by no means an exclusive list. There are so many others, but I just thought it'd be useful to just kind of give you a snapshot of these. And I think one of the first things you probably notice is that it's not technical accounting skills. Like I think you'll get to a stage in your career where that'll be taken as a given, that they'll know, look, you're a chartered accountant, so you have all of these technical accounting skills. But where I suppose the focus will evolve to is more kind of general skills. And you could even actually kind of categorize these broadly even into kind of leadership skills, but they're wider than that. It is that kind of agility and flexibility for a world that we live in that is constantly changing. So it's that change, the project management, the stakeholder engagement and management within that space, communicating and dealing with people on an interpersonal level. And then if we're working in a world that's changing all the time, is having that growth mindset to be able to take on that change. It's being curious. What is that change coming down the line? Being analytical and strategic, then to kind of say, well, so that change is coming. What does it mean for our organization? What do I need to do to add value within the organization, to position the organization for those changes and the strategic changes that are coming down the line? What does that mean for us as a commercially for an organization? So it's really, you can see where I'm going with this. And then it's about, I suppose fundamentally, the trust, ethics and integrity, and you being that trusted advisor within an organization kind of, I suppose, underpins it at all. And then that resilience and being able to deal with kind of change, deal with the challenges that come along, and to navigate the kind of, I suppose, the fast-paced world that we live in. So as you can see, it's much broader than just the kind of the technical side of things. And as I said, this is just a snapshot as it were. Now, often when I speak to members when we talk about kind of skills development, the automatic kind of assumption can be, well, oh yeah, I'll just do a CPD course in this, or I'll do a diploma in that. And absolutely, there's certainly skills and areas that you need to kind of do a course, and you need to get that kind of accreditation, shall we say. Um, but that's not the only way to kind of learn new skills. I mentioned earlier about making a lateral move or a sideways move. Great way to build on your skills and experience. Getting involved in new projects, for example, taking on an interim role, again, really very worthwhile. Also, kind of charity and volunteering work outside of your day job can help you in terms of developing a whole new skill set, particularly in the soft skill side, or even taking on a voluntary, or a non-executive directorship board role to kind of get that board experience that you might not be getting in the day job. So it's not all just about, kind of classroom or online learning. It is very much hands-on day job kind of learning as well. And just to remember that. I've put in a link here to our competency map, which is on our website, and it can help you to kind of map out, your career trajectory, and then the skills that you need along to get you along the way, and also then some suggestions in terms of how you develop those skills. So that should help you. It's a tool that will be really very useful to help you to kind of map that out. I'd also urge you to consider kind of the transferability of your skills, because this would be relevant if you're looking to kind of change direction slightly or to look at a new role. So it's really just looking at those kind of core skills that you have and how you might transition those or move them into, kind of another role. And I'd often refer to this as your backpack. So if you were jumping out of an airplane or jumping out into the world of a new job, what do you have in your backpack by way of skills? If you're going off to Australia, for example, and you're going over there, no job to go to, and you're going over to find a new job, what are the skills? What are the experience you have? And to look at that in as broad a sense as you possibly can, to not just necessarily jump into the same role or sector that you've gone have been in so far, to kind of take a broader look at those opportunities if you're taking that, I suppose, step into the unknown, and particularly at an early stage of your career, just to be careful not to get too entrenched into a particular sector or a particular discipline unless look, categorically, this is like, I want to stay within corporate finance or I want to stay within tax. Otherwise, just be mindful not to get too entrenched as well, and consider your CV and how it will be viewed, because I suppose HR professionals and agencies can be very quick to kind of box you into a particular area. So it's just to be mindful of how that kind of your profile and CV looks. And sometimes rather than getting into the specifics of the kind of areas and responsibilities, if you focus on competencies, helps you to kind of bring your experience to a higher level, that you're not getting as I suppose, stuck in the detail or the specifics of a role, particularly if you're in a big multinational where you can have a lot of acronyms or company specific titles or terminology. That can sometimes very much kind of pigeonhole you. So it's just to be careful not to to kind of fall into that trap. Keep things as general as you can, so that you're not kind of boxed into to certain areas. So it's just really to think more broadly in terms of the transferability of your skills. Obviously, then I'd suggest that you're playing to your strengths and really know what are the core skills and competencies that I bring to the role. And this, I suppose, kind of plays into your personal brand and what you bring to an organization. And a good way to look at this is to kind of look at what your core achievements have been within your career, and then look at it and say, right, well, to have achieved these certain things, what skills did I need to demonstrate? And it really then kind of, I suppose, you'll start to see a bit of a trend emerging in terms of the key strengths, competencies and skills that you have that you can bring to the role. And like if you're playing to your strengths, you're much more likely to be successful. You're much more likely to make an impact. You're much more likely as a result to see that career progression. And I suppose by way of visibility and exposure, the more familiar you are with your own strengths and the better able you are to articulate those, the more successful you're likely to be. And all the research shows that playing to your strengths not only increases your career success and the likelihood of that, it also increases your job satisfaction. Job satisfaction in turn then drives, career success. So it's all interrelated. So the key thing is to know your strengths, play to those strengths and articulate them, communicate them, and make sure that you're getting that exposure for the skills that you have. So this is just what I was saying here, like to kind of know your success bank. So list your accomplishments, look at those accomplishments and say, well, look, what skills did I need to achieve each of those key things? And that'll very quickly, as a little tool, show you what those key skills are. So building your self-confidence, really very important. And like your success bank, as I mentioned there, really important. Keep a track of that. And like if you're having a down day or a down week or a down month, don't be afraid to revisit it, to kind of check in with it regularly, to kind of say, oh yeah, do you remember I did this, I did that. Wow, gosh, yeah. So because we can get a bit disheartened sometimes if things aren't going well for us or we're having a bad week or a month. So it's keep that list of your successes, update it regularly, look for trends within that. And the big thing is to take that time out to kind of celebrate and to showcase your successes. We're all very quick, I suppose, in a busy world to kind of move on and not celebrate those successes, but make sure that you do. Give yourself that pat on the back. I think it's really important. So regularly reminding yourself of your achievements will bolster your confidence, as will having a clear sense of direction in terms of your career, knowing that you have a career plan, knowing that it's on track will give you that confidence to keep moving with it. Then also having a mentor, they too can bolster your confidence for sure. The big thing with confidence, well, there's two things. One is that inner critic, that little voice in your head to kind of say, oh, Karen, God, you're not doing a good job. Karen, that wasn't really a great kind of move, or like, what are you thinking? So it's really often our biggest critics are ourselves. So it's basically, to make sure that you're aware of what it is that you're saying to yourself, and making sure that like any of that inner critic and that negative self-talk is under control. The other big thing that erodes confidence is comparing ourselves with others. And it really is not a good space to be in, because by its very nature, you're going to I suppose think negatively or compare yourself negatively. So it's really important not to get into that spiral. So it's managing that negative self-thought and not getting into that I suppose kind of negative space of comparing yourself with others, and to really work and focus on that kind of positive attitude, that positive mindset. And often you'll see that it's people's positive attitude as opposed to kind of their aptitude that will get them into a position. So it's being, I suppose, what would we say? Ambitious, being positive, having that growth mindset, putting yourself out there, that is what will get you that next step, and having the I suppose that positive mindset and the confidence to do that. The ability piece will come naturally, but it's really just having that positive mindset. And being brave as well, it's kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone. And there's never going to be that right time to kind of make the move, because if you're going to wait till you've got 100% of all of the experience that you need, that isn't always going to come along. So I love this expression by Richard Branson where he says, if someone offers you an amazing opportunity and you're not sure you can do it, say yes and then learn how to do it later. So it's really like, don't be waiting until you tick 10 out of the 10 boxes. If you tick 6 or 7 of them, go for it, put your application forward and see where it takes you. Or if a project role comes up, take the opportunity and go with it and learn as you go, because every role for the most part nowadays is going to have a learning element to it. And it's a case of having that, confidence to step up and to take on the challenge. The other thing I wanted to mention here, and I've alluded to it already, is just around kind of learning to manage the office politics, because many people do get tripped up in terms of the office politics, and maybe coming back into it again, having worked kind of remotely, can be I suppose a challenge. So it's really understanding kind of the formal and informal networks, kind of understanding the power play that can often exist there, and it's really focusing on building kind of positive working relationships and staying away from the negativity. Hopefully you don't work in an organization where there's too much of that. There's always an element of it in most organizations, but it's trying to kind of stay away from it. Don't get sucked into the kind of the office gossip as such, and just I suppose maintaining that professionalism and those boundaries, I think is really key, not to get sucked up into that, and then to have a good network of people around you, positive professional individuals that you can speak to and that you can rely on, is really very important. So the other key thing I wanted to mention today is, and this is, I suppose, overarching everything I've said, is really just investing in your well-being, because if you don't look after yourself and have that element of self-care, it can just basically derail everything. So it really is about investing in your mental health and your well-being, because if you do that, you're much more likely to have career success. And you do need to have that, I suppose, that a strong focus on well-being and protecting your well-being as you advance your career. And it's to look at this from the physical side, your emotional side, the social side, and that support that we mentioned, and also the spiritual side, that you're giving yourself a bit of headspace as well. So it's really being mindful and careful around each of these areas, because I do think that if you focus on self-care and well-being and have that as a thread running throughout your career, you are much more likely to be successful, and to be successful on a sustainable basis, both for yourself and others around you. I did just want to point out that we have a wellbeing support service through the institute. It's called Thrive. So, it's for students and members. So if there are ever times where you're going through difficult period, there is a confidential service that is available to all members. So it's just good for you to be aware of that. And there's counselling, support, wellness coaching, and a whole range of webinars available in that space as well. And then while I'm on the subject of support, there are career supports available as well to members. I mentioned these earlier on. So there's career coaching, CV and interview preparation and support. We can also help you to kind of talk through your career, give you advice in relation to how to approach that and plan it. And if you are interested in availing of those services and supports, the email address is there. So it's just careers@charteredaccountants.ie. So look, that is everything from me at this point. I'm happy to take any questions if you'd like to pop them into the Q&A box. I do see a message here around, are there any plans to hold women's networking events in the districts? There aren't at this point, but I am more than happy to link in with the district societies. And I see that the person mentioned here is involved. So happy to take that offline and have a further conversation around that for sure. And if there's an interest in running those on a regional basis in conjunction with the district societies, more than happy to consider that. So happy to take that offline for sure. And I'll just stay on here if there's any other questions, comments, or suggestions. Happy to take those as well. And then please remember that you can contact me at careers@charteredaccountants.ie. More than happy for anybody to reach out to us in confidence, and we can support you in whatever way we can. So I think that's it in terms of questions. So look, just to say thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you at future career webinars as well. Thank you.